they're playing the Bolts.
All right. So continue to connect the conversations.
Yep.
What do the Leafs need to do to beat the Bolts? Well, Elliot Freeman, I think over the weekend, cited that the Blue Jackets are giving Gavrikov permission to speak to teams on a potential extension. He is going to be a big trade deadline target. And Freeman outlined the two of the teams, that are interested are the Oilers and Leafs. So Lucas, man, is Gavrikov a target you like? I mean, he's got a little bit of an edge to him. Not that right shot guy, but a guy that you can fit into the top four, kind of what they're missing maybe with Muzzin, less experience though. Is Gavrikov the guy? Do you think Edmonton Toronto could be teams there, or are you looking at someone else?
I like the idea of Gavrikov. I like the player Gavrikov. You know, I've always liked the way he plays, and he's got that snarl, and he blocks a lot of shots, and the defensive responsibility he brings, and the tenacity he brings. Having said that, John, like I've just been on this wagon recently of I don't think the Leafs have to do much on the blue line. Like I don't want to use assets and valuable cap space to address the blue line. I would much rather do that up front. So if Gavrikov comes in at, a mid-round pick or a very mid-level prospect, I mean, maybe it's appealing, but if it starts getting ridiculous and there's multiple buyers in there, I just don't see the value for the Leafs perspective, because I think that they need to add that top six guy or that third line C. But that's where I sit on it. I've been very comfortable with the Leafs D for a while now. Like I don't think the Leafs D as currently constructed is necessarily a problem or needs to be upgraded. I see maybe one piece coming in that can help them, and maybe that is Gavrikov. But if it overextends what you have to deal, I don't think so. What about you?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what you said, assets given up. Like I wouldn't give up more than like a second and maybe middle of the pack prospect. Like there's no chance you're giving up the first, especially with the recent history of trades with the Blue Jackets. You're not trading a first to Columbus again. You're just not. The other one that was popped up into conversations is the Leafs. I think it was Saravelli or Johnson, one of those guys throughout that the Leafs have they have been interested in Jake McCabe from Chicago. That's a guy that has that already further cap down the line. So I think it's 2 more years at $4 million per. So that could be a similar comparable to Gavrikov for an extension. I could see like them pulling like longer term. He's 27. So maybe you sign him 4 per longer after this. But Jake McCabe is the one that's more interesting for me, because I think last year they brought in the Lyubushkin type, and I think Jake McCabe's more capable on the back end in other aspects than the Lyubushkin is. But if we know one thing from Jake McCabe, he likes laying out the hits, and I think Leaf fans would love McCabe on the team as well. So Gavrikov and McCabe, if there's a defense target, I like those kind of styles in terms of defense targets, but I'm with you. If you're going to give up the assets of like a Nyes or a first or any of those, the only defenseman I would throw in that conversation would be like a Chychrun, if it's possible. But if not, to me, the targets are like a Timo Meier, guys like that, where you're throwing out the real assets. Because did you see Timo Meier drop the gloves against Brandon Carlo?
Oh, yeah, buddy. I want that guy so bad, man. Wow.
And everyone's talking about the qualifying offer, like the $10 million qualifying offer. Here's the thing. If the trade was to happen or Dubas would pursue that kind of trade, one of two things would happen here. He would either look at it as just a rental and then make enough space where you can at least just give the guy the qualifying offer. I don't think Meier would accept the qualifying offer unless he realizes that, like, if he's getting moved, I should say, like, I don't think he's just going to straight out accept it. So what I'm saying is, like, I think Dubas would either just do it as a rental, or he would try to facilitate an extension with Timo Meier ahead of time and ask the Sharks the same way other guys are doing. So I don't know. The Meier's definitely a dream scenario. I know we talked about it with Omar. I don't think it's as realistic, but I do think, Lucas, based on what I've seen and based on what insiders are talking about, the Leafs will probably make 2 moves, and it'll probably come from each position. But I'm hoping for two moves on the forward group, because I think they really could use an upgrade, not just in the top 6, but also the bottom 6. Like, I'm looking at that bottom 6. So if you get the top 6 addition, you can slide Yarncrow down. So that immediately improves your bottom 6. Yeah. I still think you need another guy in there. I really, I like McMahon. I like Holmberg. To me, they're not the sexy choices for offense in the playoffs. They're just not. They're reliable based on what I've seen so far. But past like Yarncrow and maybe if Kerfoot can provide some secondary scoring, I just don't like Engvall and Kerfoot being your main secondary scorers. I just don't like it. So I'm with you. I think the defensemen like McCabe, And defensemen like Gavrikov could be a great addition. And if they can make it work asset-wise, awesome. But definitely a couple forwards would be my targets.
Yeah, I actually do like McCabe. I think he's a lot more appealing to me than Gavrikov because he's got that cost control where he's on the team a few more years.
Yeah.
And I think that he would slot in perfectly. What concerns me is that you already had Rasmus Sandin, complaining about his lack of opportunity before the season started. Yeah. So how does that all come to play? Will be interesting if the Leafs acquire McCabe. As well,
that's what people are talking about, right? Like if you make a trade for a defenseman, you're probably looking at one of like Hull or Sandin to be on their way out. I would imagine, because again, I go back to the Timmins conversation of what Omar was saying. Yep. The way Timmins has been playing, at least individually, he didn't play well with Riley that one night, but even that pass to Yarncrow, I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but he's just been playing well. So I just feel like having Timmins and Ben as your depth already, like if you bring in another guy, I don't know how
someone's got to go out.
Yeah. And I don't want them to trade Liljegren. I don't even want them to trade Sandin, to be honest. I think those two guys are future, the now and the future. So that just, I hate being on the Hull wagon to be out of there, but you're not trading Riley. You're not trading Brody. If you don't trade Sandin, Liljegren, and you keep those depth guys I just said, who's on their way out?
Who's going out? It has to be.
Not going anywhere.
Well, like you said, it has to be Sandin or Hull. And Sandin, just trading him now, like you said, I don't think it makes the most sense. I think he is a part of the future here. So that one's interesting. But you know what I was thinking about, John, when I was watching a bit of Blues Blackhawks on the weekend, and I was watching Jake McCabe. Imagine if the Leafs were to get Jake McCabe and Max Domi from the Hawks. I know Jake McCabe and Brian McCabe, there's no relation there, but just and Jake McCabe comes in and he puts on that 24. If 24 is, I don't think 24 is used yet. Puts on that 24 and Max Domi. I know I'm dreaming, buddy, but just there would be like
Domi and McCabe.
There'd be boomers in the streets just thinking, is that Brian McCabe's son? We got Max Domi's son and Brian McCabe's son. This is crazy. Like we're riding the clock here. I mean, I would think it would just be a cool little callback.
Yeah, but, again, as Lucas said, they're not related. They're not.
But they're not related. But Max Domi is obviously Ty's son. And I think Max Domi, like I said on the episode of Tic Tac Tomar, Max Domi, I think, is that guy that could get added as a bottom six scoring forward, just some punch in the bottom six. I like it because it also brings the physicality. Max Domi is not what he once was, but I think when the Leafs brought in Galchenyuk, that worked, obviously in a different role, but that worked. They made this weird piece fit. Yeah. I could see Max Domi being really rejuvenated to come in and play for Toronto. But those are some of the targets we're looking at for sure. It's interesting to see, John, just another conversation regarding Sandin and Liljegren, like how they've just evolved in completely different ways. I think a lot of Leaf fans had Sandin, as the better prospect over Liljegren, and Liljegren has just blossomed, I feel like, into this defenseman that is you can't move that.
That's what I was talking. Yeah. I don't know who I was talking to the other night, but yeah, it is crazy, the flip. Because I swear Leaf fans 3 years ago were willing to throw Liljegren away for a rental.
Yeah. I think I might have been in there. So I'll just be honest in a minute. Big mistake on my part. But yeah, they really have flipped. As far as Nick Robertson goes, and that, I know we talked about him on the last show and him being shut down. It's unfortunate, and I think the Leafs they could have used him as a trade chip. I just don't see that happening now with the injury, and his value is obviously an all-time low. So just wanted to wish that guy well again. I know we did on the last show, but hoping that guy recovers and comes back stronger next season.
Yeah, I even said he could be part of a trade if there's some value there. I think the Leafs might look at it as if a team asked for him in the deal and it made the deal happen, I think it could just, his value to me on an asset management side, the Leafs are no Vancouver Canucks. So you're not just tossing Robertson away, but on a human perspective, maybe Dubas looks at it as okay, if we can include him in a trade that makes sense for us past this year, not just for a rental, then maybe Robertson's part of it. But for me, I've wanted the Robertson story to work so bad in Toronto. It's just over and over again, he keeps getting injured, and it's tough for the player, tough for the team. So we will see what happens. But yeah, I think Leaf fans are very resistant on trading Matt Nyes, which makes sense. And if Robertson's not getting dealt, then it goes back to the conversation. We're very likely to see a guy like Topi Niemela traded. Mm-hmm. It's very likely, unless they go back to trading the first round pick, which I guess is still possible.
It's one or the other's got to go. Something's got to give. Before we close the Leaf segment, I do think with them adding a piece from each position, or perhaps, you know, 2 forwards and a defenseman if they come in at lower cap hits. I think when there's this many bodies coming in, like we were alluding to on the defense, I think a lot of bodies are going to go out, even on forward. Like I can see some of these guys in the bottom 6, like just getting moved, like as part of either
a dump. Dryden Hunt just got on waivers.
Yeah. Like, or an Aston Reese, like maybe you're not getting value back, but just to clear the body, or they go on waivers, right? To make room. I think we're going to see big changes for the Leafs in the bottom 6. As well as, you know, another addition on D. I think they're both going to happen. Prefer on forward, but we'll see.
So do you think it's possible, just quickly, do you think it's possible that they can make it more of like their own formed fourth line? So like Holmberg, McMahon, 2 guys that they basically like homegrown. I feel like, like Keefe loves these situations, like the Engvall situation. Like I'm not saying it's directly comparable, but it's like Holmberg and McMahon, kind of these gems they've found. So yeah, I mean, do you think maybe that's the form of fourth line they're looking for? Maybe. I could see that. I think Bobby McMahon, the way he's played, man, you can't take that guy out. Just how hungry he is in the forecheck and all of that. Like he looks dialed in every night. Not really a scoring. Yeah,
he's not going to add much scoring.
Still, a little bit.
That's the issue. And that's why I think if you're going to have a McMahon and a Holmberg, maybe you got to add one more piece to kind of bring them up, prop them up a bit offensively.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the puzzle fits together.